Hey everybody, it's Daniel. Welcome back to my sofa in beautiful Barcelona. Today I wanted to talk about a book, Ghosts of Spain by Giles Tremlett. It's good. You should pick up a copy. It's a book about Spain's recent history, and I actually had this book on my shelf for years without reading it. It's better than what I had in mind. I was expecting it actually to be another Spanish history book that starts with the Phoenicians and, takes you through 2,000 years of whatever, or 4,000 years from the Phoenicians until now. And you have to go through all kinds of kingdoms, monarchs, and nonsense before you get to anything that remotely impacts your life. It is not that kind of book. It doesn't start with the Phoenicians. I can't tell you how many books I've read at this point that start with the Phoenicians. I'm just anti-Phoenician at this point. This book, Ghosts of Spain by Giles Tremlett, actually starts with the mass graves from the dictatorship. There was a lot of talk about this when I first arrived in Spain. They were starting to dig up some of the graves of people who had been represaliados del franquismo, I guess is what they call them in Spanish. People who were killed by, the state back in the day during the Civil War or shortly after. There was plenty of that sort of thing going on. Interesting story that, was new at the time he was writing and is definitely worth looking into. From there, it talks about the transition. It talks about how Spain went from, fascist or national Catholic dictatorship to being a modern democracy. Talks about how Spanish people will complain about their modern democracy, but that given the circumstances they inherited from the dictatorship, it's not quite as bad as some people would let you believe. Talks about some of the key figures from the transition, like Adolfo Suarez, who I knew nothing about, Felipe Gonzalez, who I also knew nothing about. It talks about, all of these weird things that when I was just a young person, recently arrived in Spain, people would occasionally mention them, and I'd be like, oh, that's a puzzling anecdote. Some important Spanish political figure who, in the midst of a greater scandal, was caught on video with a woman being peed on. He was being peed on. The woman was peeing on him. That's a whole story. It's in the book. I don't know. And, this kind of thing, you don't want to ask too many questions about some Spanish guy's piss video, but he clears it up admirably. Giles Tremlett is a journalist. I believe he lives in Madrid now, but he's a big fan of Barcelona as well. He talks about the mean streets of Barcelona when he moved here in the 80s. He talks about flamenco quite a bit, which is weird because I've never taken flamenco super seriously as an art form. It is, of course, an art form. It's just not the kind of thing that you get a lot of if you're not, in contact with it geographically, I guess. He talks about the Basque and Catalan nationalist and sometimes separatist movements. That's a good thing to brush up on as well. The only criticism I have of the book is not even really a criticism of the book. It's from 2006, and a lot of these stories that he talks about, have developed quite a bit since then. So he talks about El Juez Garzón, this judge who was back in the day trying to prosecute Pinochet and some of the other, like the Argentinian dictators and stuff like that. I don't know. Juez Garzón is described kind of reverentially in this book. His career ended in scandal several years ago, and he was inhabilitated for being a judge. I think last I heard from him, he was the lawyer for Julian Assange. Fact check me on that just in case it's absolutely not true, but I do seem to remember that. Anyway, he hasn't been working as a judge in Spain for quite a while now, and I think up until now he's not able to. So it looks like his career may be over. The issues of, Franco being buried in the giant basilica up north of Madrid, outside of El Escorial. He's not there anymore. There's been a lot of progress on the moving old fascist guys out of their tombs, honoring them, and, into more discreet locations. That story is still progressing. And of course, he's writing before the big Catalan independence referendum, which was one of the big stories in Spain, has been one of the big stories in Spain. The fallout from that is still, until this very day, affecting Spanish politics. Today, actually, August 17th, 2023, we're still expecting the new government, to be formed, possibly with the support of Carles Puigdemont, whose name I'm not sure I'm pronouncing correctly still, but he fled to Belgium after the independence referendum because it was unconstitutional and illegal for him to organize such a thing. He's out in Belgium, but he's still, moving the strings of Spanish politics in some way. So there's lots of interesting stuff in the book. The only thing I wish is that he would follow up with a new edition explaining some of the more recent things. But hey, for that, you've got my website, expatmadrid.com, which has plenty of stuff about the nitty-gritty day-to-day in modern Spain. Check that out. You can also check out my podcast, Spain to Go, which has plenty of interesting commentary on recent events in Spain, as well as some basic stuff, how to experience Barcelona like a local, things about international dating, whatever, I feel like putting on there. That is Spain to Go. It's available on all the major podcast platforms and the website expatmadrid.com. Here on YouTube, you can learn Spanish with me. That's why it's called Learn Spanish with Daniel. I'll get back to Spanish, but today I just wanted to talk about this book. It's good. Pick up a copy on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Have a good one. Till next time. Bye.